How does it feel to be a Sparta Prague fan after reaching the Champions League stage? What would be a good result at the Etihad Stadium in the Manchester City Sparta Prague game? How good is the new Sparta Prague signing Albion Rahmani? And what does the phrase "if the stars align" mean? Hello everyone, my name is Zdenek Lukas and you're listening to another episode of the Footglish podcast. I'm an English teacher and your host for today. If you by any chance are looking for a podcast about football which can help you learn English, well, look no further. The Footglish podcast is your goldmine. Sometimes I waffle a lot. You've just heard an example of that. But I do that by myself. Other times there is a guest. And today is one of those days that I'm not alone. Let me welcome on the podcast Mike. Hi, Mike. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Zdenek. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you here. You are Mike, a Sparta Prague fan and a host of a great podcast, which unfortunately is in Czech. I know I have some listeners who speak this language. So definitely check it out. Your podcast is called Vládci Prahy, which, how would we translate that into English?
Yeah, we were actually thinking about it the other day. The truth be told, the name Vládci Prahy, which means something like the emperors of Prague or the kings of Prague, basically, it's a long-standing nickname for Sparta Prague, right? And because I'm coming from a film business, a long time ago, I've created a movie called The Kings of Prague about the Sparta hooligans. It never came to fruition. It never happened. It never got produced. But we obviously kept the idea of the name. So when we came up with the idea to go with the podcast, we had two choices. We had Kings of Prague, Vládci Prahy, or we were thinking Spartacast, to make it pretty simple. But we decided...
Sounds good as well, to be honest.
Spartacast because it's got Sparta in the name. We were thinking Vládci Prahy. If you don't know Sparta, then obviously it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But then Petr, the other guy from the podcast, he had this great idea and he said, look, if we call it the Kings of Prague, we'll immediately be the best podcast about Sparta. No doubt.
It has a positive ring to it. You're right. But I think Spartacast also sounds good for some reason. It has a good vibe about it.
It kind of feels normal, like anyone would come up with the name Spartacast.
That's true. That's true.
So I feel we wanted to be original.
It kind of sounds like Footglish podcast a little bit, if I'm honest.
Footglish is great. You would never expect these two words to combine.
It's a blend. The word doesn't exist. For some reason, nobody has come up with the idea. I wonder why.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
For better or worse. You never know.
For better or worse, exactly. Even some of my guests have struggled to pronounce the word of the name of the podcast, so that may also tell part of the story.
That's easy. Footglish.
It's easy for you,
of course.
All right. Well, so you are a host of this podcast, which, in my opinion, is now really taking off. You're skyrocketing to some unknown heights. Honestly, like it's doing really well. But it's a relatively new podcast, as you said. You are a co-host, and it is about Sparta Prague, and it's for Sparta Prague fans primarily, and it's in
Spartans. The Spartans.
The Spartans, yeah.
Yes. No, you're right. Okay. Absolutely. We've started 4 months ago, and as everybody who started the podcast, the first idea was, look, we'll try, we'll see. If we like it and there are some people out there who like it, then, we'll keep on going. But 4 months in, I have to say, I was right about thinking there is a space to be filled in the podcasting business. There is a niche because there are, I think, 3 or even 4 Sparta-orientated podcasts out there. But I personally had issues with all of them. So rather than complaining, I was like, you know what, I might as well start my own. And 4 months in, we're very happy to say we have about 140 subscribers on Hero, and every episode is being listened by around 5,000 people. So for us, that's a massive takeoff, yeah.
Yeah, you know what, Mike? You're making me feel very small right now. Yeah, because the Footglish podcast has a slower build up.
But mate, if we are niche audience, then you are like extreme super niche.
It's
Because
true. It's true.
honestly,
Yeah,
you have to find people who want to learn English via football.
yeah,
And mate,
exactly.
that's not all the Spartans.
I'm okay with it though. I like it. I like it, and I think when you find the people who are into your niche, as you said, then I think they will stay for a long time. I'm pretty sure they will.
Well, the
So
advantage you will have over me is you will always remember the names of all your listeners.
doesn't sound like an advantage, to be
I
fair,
was
but
I was
okay.
supposed to be a little confident, but it was a joke.
Anyway, moving on. Basically, one of the reasons I reached out to you is that while listening to your podcast, and I have to admit, I'm one of your one, how many thousands it was, I can't remember, listeners, is that I noticed that both you and your co-host seem to use a lot of English words, Anglicisms. And
Especially
then
me.
once
Yeah.
you also mentioned on the podcast that you used to live in England, and I knew that I had to contact you and invite you to be a guest on the Footglish podcast, because this is exactly the kind of person I would like to talk to. And on this podcast we cover different things. I talk a lot about the Premier League, but because
Love it.
I'm Czech, like yourself, uh, I also talk about the Czech league a little bit, Sparta Slavia, the Czech teams in the cup. I did some stuff about the Czech national team. So let's talk about Sparta today.
Fantastic. If you want, we can always talk about Premier League too. That's as good as well for me.
If you
Up
enjoy
to you.
this, then another time maybe.
Sure.
But
So Czech League for
uh,
today. Yep.
yeah, well, specifically Sparta,
Sparta.
because
Sparta.
I think the main thing we have to start with is I should congratulate you, your team Sparta Prague, on finally getting to the Champions League again after I can't remember how many years. Has it been
19,
20 years? 19.
19 years.
Yeah.
And we keep saying 20 because it sounds cooler in our podcast, but technically it was 19 years. So
Yeah.
I was barely legal. I was 18 the last time Sparta was in the Champions League. So for us, it's massive. And the most interesting thing to understand is there are a couple of generations of Spartans who's never experienced it before. So like you have two generations of fans for whom it's the first time.
Yeah. Well, you might like the fact that I actually went to the Arsenal Sparta game at the old Highbury. It
And
was
you know what?
right before.
I
Yeah.
was there too, Zdenek.
Are you kidding me?
I was there too, and I'm pretty sure we were next to it. No, no, actually, we weren't because I was amongst the English fans. We had to
Oh,
because back
I
then
I
I
was
lived.
too. I think I was too. I was sitting next to a fan, and we were talking about Karel Poborský, because they asked me, this fan, it was a man. He asked me about Karel Poborský, like why he's not in the team anymore or something.
Yeah,
And I think at the time there was some kind of issue, and he had gone to České Budějovice or something. I can't remember it
yeah.
exactly.
Well, he
But
got sacked
yeah.
by a text message, if you remember.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
own, the owner of Sparta Prague sacked him by a text message, which he was an icon. He still is an icon. Karel Poborský, everybody will remember him from the Euros where he lobbed over
Exactly.
the Portuguese goalkeeper. One of the most famous European goals of all time, and he got sacked by a text message. So that
Yeah.
was not long after that. You're right. Yeah.
It was towards the end of his career. He was not the same player as he used to be. He was, by the way, he once played for Manchester United, and was it Sporting or Benfica? I can't remember.
He was. I think for a moment he was in Benfica, but he was for sure in
Benfica,
Lazio for a moment.
Lazio, Rome, yeah, as
And
well.
then
Yeah.
Sir Alex Ferguson, he once said that Karel Poborský would have made it massive in Manchester United. He had only one problem, and that was David Beckham.
David Beckham, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. He was starting out the very time Karel went there. So, that's
So we just found out that we actually went to the same game, and I'm
okay.
gonna surprise you one more time, Mike.
Okay,
It happened twice.
go
Yeah,
on.
I also went to the Jablonec Sparta game.
The recent one.
Yeah.
Well, Jablonec, Sparta, Arsenal. It's so similar, isn't it?
Yeah. So to be fair, I don't want to reveal everything on this podcast. I will say this: some of my students were there. That's why I went there.
Okay.
And that I will leave it at that.
And I'm not going to ask any more questions.
Yeah, well, I can tell you in private, but I don't want
All
to
right.
say these
Once
things
we're finished, you tell me more because it sounds
on the
intriguing now.
podcast. Yeah, but anyway, so basically, Sparta Prague in the Champions League. That's massive, right? That's amazing for you guys.
Crazy. Yeah, absolutely crazy. And to be honest, we planned for this podcast episode especially because we sort of knew we're going to go over Malmo. It would have to be a massive disaster for Sparta to lose because we were 2-0 ahead after the away game, and we went for the rematch in the home game. And so it was sort of heading there. So even we managed to get a Sparta legend on our podcast, and we prepared this massive episode about all of that. So imagine Sparta collapsed.
Yeah,
all this effort would have gone nowhere.
You know what you could have done? There is a way to deal with it. You know Boris Johnson, what he did before Brexit? He wrote two articles. One if Brexit failed and one if it didn't or something. And then he chose based on what happened, he chose how he would behave. So he became a Brexiter, right?
Sounds exactly like Boris. You know, the less I have in common with him, the better.
No, sorry. It was before the referendum, I think.
The referendum,
yes. No, before. I can't remember. There was an important moment in British politics, and he basically he was on a crossroad, and he wrote two articles, right? And he did it in a way that would suit him the best. He was like this opportunistic person, you know. It sounds like him.
Don't get me started. You could have done the same. We're going to be talking about British politics for a long time because
my point is,
I'm British too. I have two passports by now.
Oh yeah. So you could have done the same thing though, right? Because you could have recorded two different episodes with your friend. And
but
then,
mate, you're forgetting one important thing. Our episodes are usually 2 hours long. So imagine.
Well, 2 hours. I heard one that was 3 hours long.
Yeah, that was an extreme one. Yeah, I think our record is 3 hours and 24 minutes or something like. We are not planning for that. It just happens, okay? And every time we do that, I'm like, mate, we really crossed the line here. We cannot do this anymore. But every time we release an episode, like this extremely long episode, usually we get most positive feedback. It's crazy.
To be honest, Mike, I can already feel it's happening here as well, because I only asked you the first question and I didn't even get the answer yet.
Sorry.
Almost 30 minutes into the episode. I think that's fine. That's fine. I'll just reduce the number of questions. That's cool. Okay. So Sparta in the Champions League, right? So you had to go over a few opponents in the qualifier rounds. I think three opponents, right? Great stuff.
Well, to be completely honest, when I realized we will have to go three legs of opponents, I was pretty sure that Champions League is not on the cards for us. I couldn't see us beating 3 because Sparta is on the rise after a long darkness, okay? After a long time of darkness, for 19 years, we've been a mediocre club. Okay, in the Czech Republic, we were sort of up there, but we were never really competitive, okay? We got beat by Slavia for a long time. We got beat by Pilsen for a long time. So for us to go over 3 legs was very testy, okay? So the first round, we got Shamrock Rovers from Ireland. And okay, I was like, yeah, we're going to make that happen. That's not a problem. But the second round, we got S02E12, which is the old Steaua Bucuresti.
The Romanian team, yeah.
The Romanian champions. And now I could easily say, yeah, I was confident, but I wasn't. I could see us struggle, and we sort of did. You know, we sort of did. We really had troubles with that team because mentally we wanted it a lot. That was quite clear. But mentally, we are not on the level of the Real Madrid. You know, I always say, if you want to win, go and be a Real Madrid fan, because it doesn't matter if they play well or don't play well, they win. because the mentality they have.
Do you mean the player, like a Real Madrid player? You mean? Yeah.
I mean the team. Yeah, I mean the team.
The
The
team.
whole team, coached by Ancelotti, especially at the moment, they don't understand the concept of losing. Okay, so even if they play shit, if they play really bad, they usually tend to win the games. Look at them at the Champions League. They won Champions League like 5 times recently. Were they the best team in Europe? No, but they were the Real Madrid. And if Sparta can do that in their heads, then we can make things happen.
But I think you used to have that. There were times when Sparta were dominating the Czech league. But the real question is, because my listeners know that I'm not exactly a Sparta fan. I'm Czech football fan, right? I support Czech football teams. I'm not even sure it's the best thing for that league if one team is just winning everything left, right, and center. I would rather Sparta win it once than Slavia, maybe Plzeň, but of course you are in a different position. But
no, I'm not. You're absolutely right. For the best thing that can happen to Czech football is we keep saying in our podcast 5 competitive teams. The worst that can happen is what you get in Scottish League. All right, you got Celtic or Rangers. What is that? That league is so boring. Okay. And Celtic and Rangers are nowhere near as good as they could be if they played in Premiership. Okay,
yeah, of course.
Same things with Sparta here. Of course, for me, I wouldn't mind Sparta winning every time. I wouldn't mind it at all. Would it be the best for the football here? No, of course not.
It wouldn't make you better. It wouldn't. No. It's like we have a saying in Czech, like when you're king amongst like people that have only one eye or something like. Yep. It's like that. Like you can be the king, where you have no competition. You are the best, but no one is making you better anymore. You know what I mean?
I think it's called One-Eyed King in the UK as well.
One-Eyed King, right? Okay.
One-Eyed King, yeah. You're dead right. Yeah, we need Slavia to be good, and they are. I think they're not gonna be soon, but at the moment they are. You get Plzeň, which is being brilliantly managed by whoever is in charge, and then we need teams like Liberec, and then we need teams like Olomouc or even Hradec Králové to step up. Okay, and once these teams reach the levels of, I don't know, Plzeň or Slovácko, then mate, like if you have 5 teams battling for it, wow.
They will push each other. The teams will push each other, basically. Yeah, that's how you get the best out of Sparta, right? And anyone else, to be honest. And Czech football will benefit from it. And so this is great stuff. So now you are in the Champions League, and your last opponent, you mentioned the Steaua Bucharest, FC. What is it? FCSB.
Well, FCSB.
Right. Okay.
FCSB.
You're speaking Romanian to me now. It's not. This is not a Romglish podcast. This is the
Romglish. I'll make it happen for you.
Okay, sure. So then your last opponent, Malmo FF, the Swedish champion, they had no chance against
It was between Malmo or PAOK, which is the Greek champion, and everyone favored the Greek champion to go through and play us. Even I did. So it was a massive surprise when Malmo beat them. But it's important to see the context here, because Malmo beat them. The first game was, I think, 2-2 each, and the return game was 3 each, and they went into extra time where Malmo scored for the 4th time and they progressed. Okay, so Malmo scored 7 goals against Greek champions in 2 games, and they're a highly attacking team, and Sparta is an attacking team. If anything, where Sparta is lacking at the moment is the defense. All right. So going against the Swedish champions, I was okay. We can make it happen, but it all depends on the tactics. And I'll tell you what, mate. I didn't even say this in my podcast, so here I can afford.
Wow.
I believe if Brian Priske, and I'll say it next time because it's actually interesting. I believe that if Brian Priske, our previous coach, was still in charge, we would struggle with Malmo.
Okay, so let's just explain to our listeners. So Brian Priske, a Danish manager, it was a revelation in the Czech league, because we didn't have many successful foreign managers. Or was he even the first one? Maybe a Slovakian manager or something.
He wasn't the first foreign for sure, but he was for sure the first successful. Yeah.
One of the first ones he did so well. So he helped Sparta. He basically came, won, and left twice.
He
Like he
came
won
out
two
of
titles with
nowhere.
Sparta and left.
He came
Yeah,
out of nowhere to make Sparta the best team in the Czech Republic within 2 years, and then
Yeah.
he's left under sort of dubious circumstances for Feyenoord, Rotterdam,
Feyenoord, yeah,
Feyenoord,
where
and
he's struggling now.
we
He's
were
not doing
left.
really well there. Yeah.
Well, he struggled with us at the beginning, so give him time. Give him time.
Okay.
But we were left with his assistant coach. His name is Lars Fries, and at that time he progressed to our main manager, the first team
Yeah.
coach. And I'm a big fan of Lars. Okay, I think Lars is really good, but it's starting to show that tactically, I feel he is even better than Brian Priske. Okay, so that's why with the two-legged game with Malmo, we didn't concede. We won 2-0 each of those games.
Yeah.
And to me, this is okay. Wow, this to me is the biggest achievement
No,
in recent years.
I watched the
Yeah,
games, and you're absolutely right. It was about tactics, and
yeah.
he just outclassed or outsmarted
Outsmarted. Yeah, it
his
was a chess
opponent
game,
completely. Yeah.
and he was better. He was
He was
better
really
at
good at it.
everything. Yeah.
Now I wonder what's going to happen in the group stage. What it's not group stage anymore. It's called the league stage actually. So
League stage.
we have a new Champions League format. So you're going to face 8 different opponents, each of them only once. And well, shall I read? Shall I read your opponents? You
If you
know
want
them.
to make me cry, of course.
So I will read them in the order you face them. Okay.
All right.
Salzburg at home.
Yep.
Stuttgart away. Manchester City away. This is your favorite. Brest at home. Atletico Madrid at home. Feyenoord away. Feyenoord. So you're
Yep.
gonna play against your old coach.
Our ex-coach, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And then Inter at home, Inter Milan,
Mhm.
and finally Bayer Leverkusen away. So, oh my goodness, that doesn't sound like Sparta
No.
stands any chance whatsoever in that tough.
Look,
finale.
I don't think we're gonna win the Champions League this year.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
I don't think that's gonna happen. I'm gonna be
Okay.
objective about that. I think we have a small chance of progressing if
Mhm.
if we handle our home games well. All the away games, especially the one at Etihad at Manchester City, mate. Can you imagine our defense against Holland? Can you
Well,
imagine?
I saw what happened when he played against Liverpool. So you conceded 5 goals each time or something, right?
I think it was
Home and
6 one of
away.
those games.
Or was it
I
6?
think it
Oh
was
my
5 at
goodness.
home and 6 away or something like that. Yeah.
So can it get any worse?
But
I think
but
it.
wait, that was under Priske. You see,
Okay,
that
I
was
see.
under Brian Priske,
I
who
see. So
tested whether we
Mhm.
can play an open game with Liverpool. So no, we can't.
So are you going to park the bus then? Is that what you're telling me is going to happen?
And Fries is different. I think we're gonna play counter-attacking football, which basically means parking the bus, but he's gonna go for the goals as well. All right. So look,
Against
if
Man
we,
City? Are you kidding me?
I
I'm
feel like
sorry.
we're gonna
I have to
look.
laugh because it's like no
No,
one
no, of
can
course no,
no one
you're
can play against
entitled
Man
to.
City.
No, no one's
You
expecting
see,
anything. But
I,
I'll
I
tell you what: if Sparta
yeah.
can go 3-1 in Manchester, like losing 3-1, then we're gonna be the happiest bunch in the world.
You mean losing by a small margin is a tiny victory for Sparta basically?
Small margin and scoring. So 3-1
Okay.
Manchester, 3-1 City, and I think we're gonna go like, look, this team is really making progress.
And stopping Haaland from scoring. How about that?
No,
That would
it's
be
gonna be hat trick Haaland, of course,
another
3 goals for
challenge.
Haaland.
You think it's
So
going to be hat trick?
he's unstoppable.
He's
For
gonna.
me,
And don't you think? Don't you think he's gonna be arrested? Don't you think when Pep Guardiola sees Sparta Prague? I'm sorry. I
of
like
course.
Sparta, but when he sees this kind of opponent, don't you think he's just going to naturally rotate a lot and not play Haaland?
No, because don't forget that's where the new league system comes in, and
Okay.
we are playing the third game of that league system. If it was one of the last games, maybe they would be easily settled by then. Okay, but it's the third game, and for them it's
Yeah.
going to be first or second game at home. They need
Yeah.
points. They need to make it happen. So they're going to be playing full squad for sure. And if Haaland is playing, and to me he's my favorite player in the world now after
Okay.
Ronaldo. So because it's Ronaldo era is over, so for me it's Haaland now. Uh, If he scores 3 times, I'm not gonna be surprised. Of course, no. Like his strength, his speed, his dominance against the defense we have, and we have a very good defense, okay, but not on that level. Of course not.
No, no one does. I mean, it's like
No one
so
does.
hard to play against City. Like you see we see the games in the Premier League. We watch them, so no one can really play against them. Maybe Liverpool, Arsenal, but
West Ham was recently playing City, right?
I saw
And
the
West
game.
Ham's got and they've got 2 Czech players in there. So they were interviewing one of
Bench.
the Czech players,
They were on
one
the
of the
bench.
Czech players, and asking them about Sparta chances against Haaland because he scored 3 times against West Ham, and he just smiled and he said like they're gonna have their hands full, yeah.
Yeah, that was Vladimir Coufal. Yeah, he said that. Yeah.
Kufal, as they call him in the UK.
Coufal, yeah. Vlad, they say. Right. So you think there is a tiny chance? You see the light at the end of the tunnel there, basically.
Of progressing, a tiny chance, yes. Of progressing easily, no, of course not. But that's Champions League for you. And I keep saying for the Czech system, the best way is exactly what is happening this year. 1 team in the Champions League just to test it out and get the money, okay, and the 2 teams in the Europa League to actually play competitive games.
Yeah.
Because if stars align, Spalaviya or Sparta, in few years' time, they could be looking to go into the last 4 in the Europa League. Okay, if stars align in few years' time.
You mean in the semi-final they would be there?
We could go as far as that. Not in Champions League, of course, in the Europa League.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But so 2 teams in there and 1 team in the Conference League, I think is the great setup. 4 teams like that is the best thing. I don't want 2 teams in Champions League. What for?
I was rooting for Slavia, but they played really well against.
They were so close. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, they
French
were so
team.
close.
So you sound like a reasonable fan, because I know a lot of Sparta fans wouldn't say the things you are saying, basically. So you support Czech teams, even if it's Slavia, right? You would support them, and you would
in Europe,
of course, not in the derby, but yeah.
No, in Europe, I am all for the Czech teams, and I love watching Slavia play in Europe because they are really interesting out there. And the great example was their second leg against Lille, where they were 2-0 down after the first leg, and if they had 1 good attacker in there, like our attackers, they would beat them bad. They were actually very close to beating them. And I mean, they beat them, but it was 2-1, so it was not enough after all. But they played so well, and that I enjoy very much. But in the league, I can't stand them. Can't stand them.
Yeah, there's a huge,
Every
huge
weekend
rivalry.
I have 2 passions. Every weekend I have 2 passions. One is, will Sparta win? Okay. And the second is, will Slavia lose points? And it's equally passionate for me.
Yeah. I understand. Okay, so you have some new signings now as well. Rahmani Albion. His first name is Albion. I quite like that name as an Anglophile. Albion sounds like a cool name. I would love to have that name, to be fair. So he seems like a real deal, doesn't he?
Well, he played altogether like 47 minutes. He scored in Champions League, progressing us into the main stage. And he scored in the league the goal I haven't seen anyone score for a long time in the Czech league, because it was so Messi-like. It was just like Messi goal, very precise, very slow and precise, incredible goal. And then he also assisted for 1 goal. So he started incredibly, and it's quite obvious that physically he's not up there yet. But imagine if physically he's not up there and he already scores goals. So what happens when he's physically up there? He might be unstoppable in the Czech league. He might be, And for the money we paid for, and he came from Romania again. So the money, was it Romania? He's Kosovan, but did he come from Romania? Yes, I think so.
Yeah, from the Romanian league. I don't know exactly which team, but
I should know. I can't remember now. But he was the main striker. He was the best striker, best player of that league. So there are big expectations, and far, wow, yeah.
The funny thing is that he was the top target for Slavia as well during the transfer window. But then something happened. They got Hori instead, and they let him go. And instead, Sparta signed him, which
Look,
is interesting.
when it was released, and it was actually after the game with Jablonec that you went and I went, and the news got released that he's already on his way to Prague. Honestly, my first emotion was not, yes, we're getting a great striker. My first emotion was, oh, we got one over Slavia now. Like we beat Slavia in the chase for the player. That's how bad I am when it comes to the competition. But yeah, I mean, I prefer him 1,000,000% over Hori, because I think Hori is a great player, but I don't understand Slavia thinking there. I don't get it.
Also, I was thinking about how we actually should pronounce Hori, because in English there's no h sound, so you have to say Chori.
Well, we can call him ill or sick. Because that's what it means, right?
Which is the for those of you who don't speak Czech, which is the translation of his Czech name. It means ill or sick. He's like one of those tall players with good hold up play and obviously aerial threat. And we used to have some of those in the Czech national team. Jan Koller, Lokvent, your ex, well, both of them played for Sparta Prague. Yep. And now there is this Hori who professed his love for Sparta in a video, an Instagram video or something. And then he was in trouble when Slavia were signing him, because the Slavia fans couldn't still, I think a lot of them still can't stand him, because he said in a video, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago, that the team of his heart was always Sparta, and now he went to Slavia, the biggest rival. So,
oh, isn't that great though? When this got released, found and released again, because we have a tendency in our podcast to create like an AI song for the ending of each episode, which kind of talks about the current affair. So we made a song about him professing his love for Sparta and his it was a ballad, and his unhappiness that he has to go to Slavia now. It got many hits and views and a lot of hate from the Slavia fans. But you're right, there are a lot of Slavia fans, the hardcore fans, who don't celebrate when he scores, even now.
Yeah. So obviously, you also got this player. Let me find his name. Elias Kobut.
I think it's Kobu.
Who also looks. Does he look a little bit like you? He has a beard, right, as well.
Yeah. He looks as threatening as me. But he said in his first interview that, don't get me wrong, on the pitch I'm a bit of a demon. So I'm really interested what that means. But in my private life, I'm absolutely a nice guy. And I'm like, every demon says that.
So it's like you. You're also a demon on your podcast, I'm sure, and in real life, and when you are a guest on other people's podcasts, you are also.
No, I'm pretty sure I'm a nice guy in my podcast as well. It's the opposite with me. In my professional life, I'm a nice guy, but when it comes to my personal affairs, I'm a demon.
Actually, we have something in common there.
There you go. There you go.
I think
go
so.
To the same matches.
Possibly.
The one thing we need to do with you is to turn you a Sparta fan. You can't be a fan of Czech football. You need to choose. And you're a Spartan in heart. It's quite clear.
I'm not sure. Well, if you asked me to which stadium I went more, if to Letná, which is the Sparta stadium, or Eden in my life, I think I went to the Sparta stadium more often.
There we go.
Maybe like 10 times or something. Eden like 3 times. So
there you go.
I'm not sure though. I'm still not convinced. I like the Premier League too much for that. The Arsenal.
That's not mutually exclusive. You can like both. I like both.
Yeah,
I'm watching both, of course.
But Sparta and Slavia are mutually exclusive. You cannot be a Sparta and Slavia fan. It's impossible, right?
Impossible.
Yeah. Okay, then. And then, so let me ask you about one more player, which is an interesting story there. Jan Kuchta, So a player that also used to play for Slavia Prague, then he went to Russia or something, of all countries. And then he ended up
at war.
I know it was. But still. And then he ended up at Sparta, and great 2 years. He is also known for being a bit of a troublemaker and enfant. How do we say that? Enfant is like a There's a French word, enfant terrible or something.
Enfant terrible, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay. You see, I didn't know that. I don't have an English passport like you do. So
yeah, there you go. I'll help you.
Okay, thanks for that. So, but I think it was enough for him. He didn't want to, for some reason, didn't want to play the Champions League. Now decided to go to Midtjylland, a Danish team. So, what do you think about that?
Look, I think first of all, from the opposite end, Midtjylland was in the Champions League playoffs as well. Okay, and they play against Slovan Bratislava, the Slovak champions. Okay,
Yeah.
I think it was for them. It wasn't even a competition. So when they were thinking about Jan Kuchta, they were like, okay, we're gonna be in Champions League, so we're gonna pay a big money for this striker who's gonna have great 2-3 years with us before he ends his career. But then they got beat by Slovan Bratislava, which was, to me, was a shock. Because don't forget, Midtjylland is one of those teams who are high tech. They've got like 17 million coaches for everything. In Slovan Bratislava, they pride themselves on having a guy who is a coach and a guy who cleans their boot, and that's it. There are like 3 people in there. Okay, so they beat Midtjylland. They went to Champions League.
They're old school,
old
like
school,
Peter Rada style.
Exactly. And now Kuchta is in Denmark, and he's gonna play in Europa League. I guess it's okay for him. I don't get it that much, but I think the biggest problem for Kuchta here is Rahmani. I don't think it was so much his wish to go elsewhere, but he realized with signing someone like Rahmani, there's gonna be no space for him in Sparta Prague. That was the only reason. I don't think he would have gone if Rahmani didn't arrive.
Yeah, I mean, if he still has the ambition to be in the national team as well, which he didn't get into the nomination now because he wasn't really playing for Sparta in the recent games. So I think it was probably the right move from that point of view, because he still is a good player. There is something about him, right? He has got some qualities.
If you can use him right, he's a massive player. And look, he's been with us for 2 years, and it's interesting. Like, some people now call him a legend. No. Let's calm down, everybody. Okay, you can't get a legendary status in 2 years. Okay, you can't.
Can you also get a legendary status as an ex-Slavia player?
You can.
Yeah.
That's not the issue. But you have to sort of be different with the club. You have to be with. For me, the word legend is reserved for people who are with the club for a long time and they really become the club. You know, like people like Láďa Krejčí, who's went to Girona recently. He came a young guy from Brno. He became, out of nowhere, he became a captain, leader, the icon of the team, of the change. So for me, even Brian Priske, who is the coach who turned Sparta around, he's not a legend. He's not a legend, okay? He's a great guy who I always love for what he's done for my team. But he's not a legend. And Jan Kuchta is not a legend. He's a guy who's played here for 2 years, and there were months where he was incredible and he really pushed the team. And then there were months where he was totally useless. Let's not forget that, okay? But I like guys like Jan Kuchta, these sort of twisted, bad boy
twisted
characters.
mind.
Like
he's a bit of a bit of a character, as we say in English.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Mike. I also have to say you've been an excellent guest on this podcast. I kind of expected that. So your English is amazing. We want exactly that on this podcast. Thank you very much for featuring. Good luck with your Vládci Prahy podcast, the Kings of Prague, and all the best. Hopefully, I may have you on again at some point to talk about the Premier League. Which team do you support?
Yeah, I'm not secretive about it. I'm a Chelsea supporter.
Oh my goodness. Got too many of those. I know too many of those.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because in my defense, I supported them before they got bought by Abramovich. When they got bought by Abramovich, I didn't complain, I must say.
Are you like me? Did you start supporting them because of a Czech player, Petr Cech? Because I started supporting Arsenal because of Rosický. I'm not going to deny it.
I understand that. No, because don't forget, Petr Cech went there already in the Abramovich era. So I like Chelsea from the Gianfranco Zola era. He was the Italian guy who
I remember
played
him.
really well. So that was the first time I sort of I liked their underdogs. Okay, because I was raised in the Czech Republic, so to me English league was I had no connection. But then Gianfranco Zola, I liked him, and I liked the team because they were sort of second best for a long time.
Yeah.
So when they got bought by Abramovich, I didn't complain. But I was undecisive when Rosicky arrived to Arsenal, and I have a great story about Rosicky coming to Arsenal because I met him at the time in the UK on a very strange event. But I'm planning to tell that in my podcast as a Christmas story. So we need to tune in some other time.
Okay. Well, that's
me
nice.
Me and Tomáš Rosicky, we go way back.
That's a nice way to attract listeners to your podcast.
Exactly.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much for being on the podcast, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Thank you for having me.
Take care. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Language Corner. I don't think it can be any surprise to anyone that the episode I recorded with Mike from the podcast called Emperors of Prague, or Vládci Prahy if you want, was very long. It always happens to Mike, and I guess in combination with me, it's bound to happen too. But we have the Language Corner, and I'll try to keep it short because we don't have so much time. And I also want to do a song because we had Mike on the podcast, so I have to have an AI song in this episode as well. Of course I do. So, Mike said, if the stars align, Slavia or Sparta, in a few years, they could be looking to go into the last four in the Europa League, right? So basically what he was saying is that if things work out well, if things pan out in a favorable way, then it's possible that Sparta and Slavia will be in the Europa League semi-final, okay? So let's say it was some sort of optimistic prediction from Mike. But what I'm looking at here is the phrase if stars align, which I really like a lot. And first of all, the verb to align. So it basically means to arrange certain objects in a line, in a straight line. And we often talk about stars and so-called constellations, right? We can talk about stars aligning, right? If you're sort of using telescope and you're observing stars, you can see the stars in a straight line, and then people study it and they give it names and whatnot, okay? So we also use this phrase in a metaphorical way. If the stars align, right, if the stars are arranged in the right way or in a straight line, then things can happen in a really positive way, right? Things can pan out or play out in a favorable way, right? For example, I don't know, you're about to play a football match against a really tough opponent, I don't know, for example, at Santiago Bernabeu, and you're not exactly a favorite, but you have a plan, you have a strategy, yeah? And you could say something like, if stars align, we could get a draw there, right? So it's like if things work out in the way they should, right? There's a chance this could happen, okay? So this is the phrase if stars align. Very good one. I have to praise Mike for excellent English once again because it was rather impressive. I listened to the episode again, so I had a chance to notice the sort of vocabulary Mike uses, and yeah, it is impressive. But anyway, enough of compliments. Now, what I have to do is to basically encourage you, the listeners of the Footglish podcast, to subscribe. Where can you do this? Well, you can do it wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the usual places. It's also on YouTube, but my YouTube channel isn't called the Footglish podcast. My YouTube channel is called Teacher Zdenek, and I have some other stuff there as well, so don't be surprised. So please subscribe, and now what remains to do is to play you this AI song, which I have dedicated to Mike and his friend Petr, and Hopefully, it's not the last time we hear of them here on the Footglish podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care, bye-bye, and good luck to Sparta in the Champions League. Cheers.
19 years we waited, dreams of glory faded. Now the time has come, Champions League, here we go. Big giants in our way, our best football we must play. Red Bull Salzburg and Inter Milan, no need for wings, we just run. Stuttgart, let's catch a wink. Brest is not what you think. It's a team from France, I think we stand a chance. Sparta Prague's back again, Champions League for all our men. Mike and Peter cheer it loud, Vládci Prahy feeling proud. Atletico Madrid has got no flaw, Feyenoord Rotterdam want a draw. Brian Priske knows our name, but we won't play his game. Leverkusen with Patrick Schick, what a draw, it's just sick. Haaland, De Bruyne and Rodri, Man City's tough for everybody. Sparta Prague's back again, Champions League for all our men. Mike and Peter cheer it loud, Vládci Prahy feeling proud. Eight giants in our way, our best football we must play. Red Bull Salzburg and Inter Milan, no need for wings, we just run. Stuttgart, let's catch a wink. Brest is not what you think. It's a team from France, I think we stand a chance. Sparta Prague's back again, Champions League for all our men. Mike and Peter cheer it loud, Vládci Prahy feeling proud.